Hey, good afternoon, morning, day, night, whatever you time it is when you're watching. This will be a quick lesson on percents. Uh, Now, there's a couple things you need to remember about percent. And the main one, percent means out of 100. Okay? So whenever you're trying to calculate percent or convert it from fractions to decimals, you always have to remember that percent means out of 100. Okay? And percent fits into our ratio unit a bit here, where we see that percent is a part to whole ratio that compares a number to a whole divided into 100 parts. So for example, 25%, that is the same as 25 to 100, or written 25 over 100, which is the fraction. Okay? So this is fairly straightforward. If you look, my example, if I have 65% and I need to convert it to a fraction, 65% meaning out of 100, it's 65 out of 100. And the same thing if I write it more like a ratio style, 45 to 100 is the same as 45%. Now, the trick, we have 3/4, and that equals 75%. Well, how in the world did that get to 75%? Because 4 is not out of 100. So what we need to do is create an equivalent fraction or an equivalent ratio. So we make 4 become 100. So in this case, to get 100, we times 4 by 25. And what we do to the denominator, we must do to the numerator. And we get 75 over 100, which becomes 75%. So your key thing to remember is percent means out of 100. Now our assignments will be involving converting fractions from to percents to decimals and back and forth. So if I'm given a number, I'll lower the screen a bit. I have a question. I have 50%. I want to convert that to a fraction. So 50% means out of 100. So I have 50. And to get it as a decimal, it'll be 0.5, or you could write it 0.50. All right? These are straightforward. Here's your tricky one. I have 5%. Okay? 50%. So if you think of a pizza, 50% would be half that pizza. But we've got 5%. So remember, 5% as a fraction would be 5 over 100. Okay? So looking at 50 and 5, they're not the same. They're two different numbers. So my decimal, if we remember back to our decimals in January, 5 over 100, that's 5/100ths. So that would mean my 5 is in the hundredths place. So this is my decimal. Okay? Different numbers. So you cannot have these two equal 0.5. They're not the same number. They're just totally different. Okay? So that's wrong. Okay? Let me erase this and do a couple of more. Okay, so I'll start with the fraction now. 72 over 100. The easiest thing to do for 72 over 100, percent right away. So this becomes 72%. All right? And the decimal, it's 72 hundredths. So my decimal would become 0.72. Pretty straightforward. Okay? So, one more tricky conversion. So I have 3/5 my fraction. I need to convert that to a percent. Percent, and it should be in your head, out of 100. So I'm going to make this an equivalent fraction. What number do I multiply 5 by to get 100? 20. And the same for the numerator. So my number now, 3/5, converted to 100, which is an equivalent fraction, 60 over 100, meaning 60%. And converting this into a decimal, 60 hundredths, you would go and put this. Let me slide back a little bit. So percents are quite straightforward as long as you remember percent means out of 100. And that's that. My shortest math video yet, I think. So hope you enjoyed. Also, new percentage booklet on the Google Classroom. Make sure you take a look at it. That's that. Here's my Rattlers hat. Goodbye.